Right. Brilliant. Okay, so once again, many apologies. My name is Pauline Karega. I'm a PhD student at the University of Manchester. I'm looking at air quality and health data integration, or the socio-technical factors that affect integration of these two data sets. And I'm looking at the social and the technical factors. And it's been a very interesting journey because I'm comparing the global south versus the global north versus global south, a few countries within. And the disparity of the data sets themselves. So environmental data is usually quite open, and then health data is quite closed or quite sensitive. So usually its openness is not as um, it becomes a little bit challenging when we are looking at how to make it open. So looking at those two data sets and looking at, I'm an avid fan of open data. It's what helped me out in my master's. And so I really enjoyed the open journey. And coming from the first lesson that you guys had on open data, one of the main tools that really help with bridging that gap to be able to now do it practically, it's data management plans. So just a brief overview of what we're going to be going through today. We're going to be introducing data management plans and their components. We're going to be looking at the steps towards writing a data management plan. And then we're going to be talking about opportunities for involvement in open data communities, because to quote Isil from the previous class or the previous video, openness is about community. That's what really helps to drive the conversation, and also it helps out with practice so that you're able to see what is going on out there as well. And this is just linking to the previous lesson, or from timestamp 5814. That's where we are taking over from in this video or in this lesson. So what are data management plans? So they are structured document that outline how research data will be handled during and after a project. And it's very important that we note after a project, because usually sometimes we forget about the data. Once we have answered our output, we forget where the data is going and all that. So the after, it's quite important. So it outlines how data will be collected or created, stored, its security, its sharing, its preservation. All these components have to go into a data management plan. And some of the main components of a data management plan are, you'll have to describe what your data is and what format it is in. A metadata, the metadata content and formats, those go into the data management plan. The policies and standards for sharing, access, and reuse, all those, you get to put them in the data management plan. The type of storage, long-term, short-term, that goes into this as well. And also a budget, if you have one. And one of the main things that you're going to see is that the tools, for example, that were created for us, the open tools that are available to us for building or making a data management plan, they highlight that they help create plans that meet institutional and funder requirements. So funder requirements are a big thing as well. So they help you also learn about a budget. So what are the common elements of a data management plan that are relevant to open data especially? So with a data management plan, you will highlight the what. So what is your data? So that will have you including your data formats, and where relevant, you'll include your standards. When, which refers to when and if to share the data. Are you allowed to share this data? You'll have to think about if you're allowed to share this data. You're going to, if I can link that to the who, if you're allowed to share this data, who needs to allow or give permission for you to be able to do this. So you're going to have to think about the roles of the people interacting with your data sets, how the plan enables the reuse of the data. Can it be reusable? Are you allowed to make it reusable? And then the intended repositories for putting in your data, whether they're temporary or long-term, or both. Do you have a long-term and short-term storage for your data? Yeah, and I should have said while we were starting, this is going to be a very interactive session. It's meant to be one of the most interactive sessions in the whole syllabus, this second part of open data. So yeah, given that you've already done this is supposed to just take 5 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to put that aside. If you've done it already, you've written down or thought about a current project or a future project or a project from the past that you have done, and all the data sets and all the components here. So if I can get thumbs up of if you've already done this. Graciela, if you ever will to tell me how many thumbs up we get, it's a good number, then we can move on. Oh, brilliant. Yes, yes. Oh, great. Can we move on then? Nice. Okay. Right. Put those aside. We're going to come back to them later. And then two important tools when you're thinking about where to start with data management plans. One of the main things I've learned, okay, so originally I'm from Kenya and I did my undergraduate and my master's in universities in Kenya. And we did not have structures in place that told us what to do with the data. So we had to think about it. I had to think about it myself. And one of the other things was I was bringing it to my supervisor that, oh, I can use a data management plan to tell you things about my data. As opposed to now being in the University of Manchester, these tools are already set in place. These are part of the structures. So I did not have to think about, I just had to think about now the nitty-gritty details about my own data and then arrange them nicely and present them. But the structure was already in place. And maybe you are in the same situation. You're in a university that does not have such structures in place. Two platforms that are very, very amazing and quite easy to use and are just changing the entire space of open data, especially are DMP tool and DMP online. So within these two tools, you're able to find quite a number of already published, openly published data management plans. So in whatever field or domain that you're in, you can find a generic template. You can find examples of the management plans, data management plans that are available for you to use, and you can, yeah, mimic them or copy them based on the type of data that you have. And one of the things I like about such tools, for example, like I've mentioned before, I was bringing some of this information to my supervisor. I got to ask them, oh, if I wanted to share this data openly for other people to use, now that after I'm done with it for my master's studies, for my thesis, am I allowed to share it? And they were able to tell me no or yes. So they told me about systems, internal systems within the university that are not published, were not published in my university. So for example, they told me, we have an embargo for your data, for any data that any student collects in our university, that the data is held for 5 years and we cannot release it. So with these tools, you're able to learn quite a lot, things that you're able to take back as well to your own community, to your own university. and teach other people above you as well, and you become part of best practices. So one of the main tools you're going to be walking through today is DMP Online. That's the one I've interacted with most, so I'm a bit biased, so forgive me. And then as you go into doing your own work, you can interact with DMP tool as well. Right, so fun bits now. Let's walk through DMP Online. Good stuff. Tell me if your view changes and you're seeing my DMP Online. Graciela? Oh,
Yeah, we
brilliant.
can see it.
Good stuff. Okay, so, right. I have already logged in. Just to check fast, are there questions? Let me stop there. I feel like I've rushed a little bit. Yeah, let's stop there. Any questions so far? Post them in the chat or in the Pramapad.
Not at the moment.
Brilliant. So I continue. Great stuff. Okay, so let's go through a data management plan. By default, mine gives me access to the University of Manchester plans that are available. They have my credentials, so once I log in, that's what comes up. And essentially, let me move you guys to the side here. Right, so I have options in my current situation, that is being in the university that I'm in. I can look through a bunch of templates. For example, I can search for genomics and find templates that other people have made before and maybe adopt those templates. Or if I do not have a template in mind, I can just choose to create a plan. And since we can be able to create a mock project, let's do that. Brilliant. I'm going to use just one of the things I was writing down as an example. So let's say I want to do a project that is titled Research on Genomic Data Availability in the Global South. So on my end, if I say create, it will ask me to just select one of these options that are available. If I was funded, for example, by Wellcome Trust, they have a template already. And since part of their funding requirement is that you present them with a data management plan, I would select just the Wellcome Trust template if this project was funded by Wellcome Trust. So I'm going to just go with the generic university template and say create. And then now go into the details of everything that comes up. So usually on the side, I would have thought about this project, discussed it with my supervisor, would have come up with our objectives, what type of outputs we want, our methodology, for example, and an abstract. So if I had one, that's where that would go. My research domain, art and related environmental sciences, you will already have discussed with a project start and a project end. This is just a random ID generated. If your research outputs maybe have ethical concerns, especially for health data, that's usually serious, and usually describe your ethical concerns, all of them that come up. Ethical protocols, this can be university ones or the funder ones. So you have to list down all your ethical protocols that are required. If you have a funder, you put their ID or you put their grant number there, but you put the name of your funder. If I had selected, for example, a Wellcome Trust fund, those would have come up automatically. And if it is a planned funded project, you can select that it is planned already or denied or funded. And then you save it, and then now you go to the contributors. Contributors, the part where I had asked you guys to write down the roles of everyone in who would be involved or who would interact with your data. That is where this comes up. So if you have a principal investigator, in my school, for example, if I say I add a contributor, I can just search the name of my supervisors and put them here. But essentially, put them their name, their email. If they have an ORCID ID, that's where you put it. I believe you are introduced to ORCID IDs in the previous lesson, or they'll also come up in, I believe it's tools. Yeah. The affiliation where they are located, and then you select the role for each of the people. They are data manager, a PI, an administrator, and you list down all the ones that are involved in your project. So you have to understand, and for me, I found that it was a very interesting, it brought up very interesting conversations, especially in my university in Kenya. Some of these things we had not defined, the university had not defined some of this for us. So we did not know who was the data custodian. We knew the PI, so who is the data custodian, and what is their role? We did not know that. We had to come up with those. Once the project ends and I leave the university completely, and someone comes looking for this data 5 years down the line after the embargo is over, and I'm not associated with this anymore, who therefore is being contacted for to get the data? This is the type of stuff that comes in to the data management plan. Yeah. So figure out your contributors, bring up these conversations. These are some of the things I just learned from writing this document alone. So I hope you learn the same. And then it gives you an outline of what you're going to be learning. It has a lot of questions, this DMP. And once you have all your information, you go into now writing the plan. So let's walk through a few of these questions. At first glance, it might look intimidating. I won't lie. When I was writing my own, it took me a week, and it's because the first day I saw it, I switched this off and then went and did other things for 4 days and came back for the rest of the work on the third and fourth day. Yeah. So yeah, I again uh, I get guided or guidance from some of this. On the side, I get information that I can fill out, and that is because they're filled out by my university already. If you do not have this, some of the templates also have guidance from the people who have authored those data management plans. So they give you guidance about what you're supposed to be filling. So, for example, am I collaborating with any other universities? I need to figure out the type of collaboration that I'm having and association that I'm having with the other institution. For a question like this, you think about data transfer policies. If data is going to be transferred across boundaries, you have to know that beforehand and list that down. It helps you to think about that. And then at some point down the line, you're going to be asked about the type of policies, and you have to list those in your data management plan so that later on, when it comes up, you're able to say that this is the case. And I understood that my data needed to move between boundaries. So I did have this type of policy in place, and everyone who needed to sign something signed something. Yeah. So yeah. Will this project be reviewed by any of the following bodies? You tick all that apply to you. Are you collaborating with anyone? Think about your collaborations. What data will you use in this project? You get to think about, am I a secondary user or am I a primary user? Am I going to be creating my own data set? So if you're going to be acquiring new data, what type of data is it? Is it a qualitative project? So for example, if this project of mine requires that I'm going to be acquiring new data, and I'm also going to be reusing existing data, for example, I will tick the two and I will put in additional information. This is a qualitative study. In our example, this is a qualitative study. So I will write down in detail that I will be interviewing and using surveys. I will be collecting data through interviews and surveys. It's a qualitative study. And you go into detail about, I will also be reusing previous transcripts or videos produced by the collaborator in their own institution while they were doing a similar project or a similar objective. If they interviewed people, you can say you're going to be reanalyzing or reusing their surveys. These are the types of information that you put down. Where will the data be stored and backed up during the project lifetime? Does your institution have data storage? In my institution, we have the options of the university data storage. For health data, sensitive data, we have something called a safe haven. The P drive, we usually have access to it just as the students. And if you're going to use external storage, you have to list that down. So yeah, you get to think about what type of resources you have in your own university or as an individual doing your project. Yeah, and state where this data will be stored. And I believe one of the things that you're learning in the entire cohort is, yeah, your data needs to be findable. So as you think about resources, is this resource, will you be able to link it so that other people are also able to use your own data? So yeah, where will that data be stored and backed up? And I believe also, yeah, it gets you thinking about issues such as data archiving. For example, the thing that happened with the US for environmental people who use environmental data, we were affected because people who stored their data in the US, once the data disappeared, where did all that data go? So now in these current situations that we're in, you have to think about such things as well. Can you back it up somewhere that allows you long-term storage in case anything happens? These are mainly very specific for my university, for example. I have to think about the size of the data set that I'm going to be storing and tell them beforehand so that they prepare this resource. Yeah, And once again, another thing you get to learn as you're interacting with data management tools. What type of resources do you have? Are they available to you in the space, in the research space that you're in? If not, what are your alternatives? Write this down in your funding, the infrastructure. It allows you to also really think about infrastructure. So it's quite important as well. Are you going to be receiving data from or sharing data with an external third party? Once again, in my university, we call it export control, and you have to go through a bunch of licenses or a bunch of applications. So if you're an independent researcher within your institution, what type of systems do they have in place that allow you to share data between countries, between collaborators, and also just to protect yourself as a researcher? Can you come up with one? Can you find one yourself, bring it to your own supervisor, share it with your collaborator, and tell them, since I'm going to be sharing it with you, who is an external person, I would also like my data to be protected and myself to be protected. So I want to introduce this license. So you get to think about this with data management plans. You get to think about the length of time that you want to store your data. So how long will you have access to your resource, where your data is being stored. In my university, there's a set standard of time. What about you? In your resource where you're storing your data, do you have a limited amount of time? And after that, to enable findability, to ensure that that is consistent, where are you going to move it? And how are you going to link it now so that it's still accessible to people for them to be able to find and use? Yeah. Many other questions? There's a part about licenses. I'm looking for these questions. Sharing, what type of data you're collecting and how it affects the people that you're collecting the data from, your data source. Are they going to be affected in any way? So are you going to be collecting personal information? Are you going to be doing things like de-identification? It's important for you to think about these things. Yeah. So why I was scared of doing a data management plan myself was I hadn't really thought about some of the methodology that I was going to go through, really intently thought. So this allowed me to sit down and actually write my methods better, right? The type of data I'm going to be collecting, how I'm going to be analyzing it. Yeah, that is what comes up in the second part. Policies and guidance and guidelines on data management, data sharing, data security that are relevant to your project. Do you have the documents in place to be able to do that? Who is responsible for data management? And what type of resources will you require to deliver your plan? What data will you collect or create? If we are doing interviews, you're going to be creating videos or audios, and then the transcripts. How will you collect the data? So in my institution, for example, I'm not allowed to use tools outside the ones recommended by the institution. So I have to list down, that I will use Zoom and Zoom alone that is linked to my school account. And then I will do the video transcription. I'm not allowed to pay anyone to do the video transcription or the transcribing, so I have to do it myself. Are these the same for you? What type of documentation and metadata, terms that you already come across from previous lesson, and you're required to think about them really well. What type of ethical issues and legal issues or might come up during the use and reuse and access of your data. You have to really think about this and write all the potential issues that might affect your data. So for health data, there's the issue of re-identification. They might be in danger of being re-identified. So what type of measures do you have to put in place so that this does not happen? You get to think about all that. Storage and backup, quite important. Yeah. And then data sharing. How will you share your data? Will you do it through the open platforms that we have, like Figshare and Nodo? Are they linked to your institution in any way? What type of things do you have to put in place so that you're able to share your data? Any restrictions? Yeah, that was a very quick walkthrough of the entire thing. And you're going to be interacting with this yourselves so that you do it practically and see what goes on. Yeah, and then you think about the research outputs. What do you anticipate? If you're building a software using the data, you have to list that down. And the beauty with the data management plans, you get to change them up as things go on. But as you change them, right, so you have to share it with someone. You have to, for example, I have to share it with my institution. And anytime I make a change, it affects something. So I have to think that about that as well. So you can invite collaborators to help you edit it and also to make comments so that your plan is well suited for the institution that you're in or for the work that you have listed you want to do. And you can do this by, collaborating or requesting feedback. I can request feedback from my own university. They have a committee that sits and that does just the reviewing of the plans and making sure that they are within a set standard. Yeah. And once you're done, you can download it, to share it with your funder or to share it with anyone else involved in the project. Yeah, so that was a very quick walkthrough of DMP Online. I'm going to stop there again and check if there are questions.
There are currently no questions in the chat or in the format part, but I might use a question if I'm allowed to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is that in case you're not affiliated to any institution, no university, no funder, do you really need to make a data management plan? Because seeing these long, unending forms, it might be a good excuse to procrastinate and not actually do the work trying to fill it.
And I totally understand that. But it is quite a good tool for thinking about your methodology one, even if you don't have to share it with anyone. It allows you to really think about if this project was in a different type of being governed by a different type of standards, what would they require me to do? If I wanted this project to be funded, what would they require me to do? So first, it's a very good practice tool for as you expand. Second, it's a good way to think about your project holistically and not just the usually as researchers, we're very stuck on the type of research, the research itself, the scientific bit, and the type of output that we want. But yeah, we're learning about open science and thinking holistically to ensure that our methods, our data is fair. It goes beyond just our our project, not small, our project itself, our own individuals. So yeah, what learning to do all the standards even when they're not required, and it's a very good practice tool, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Right. So let's we've done a walkthrough of DMP online. There's the second exercise that, yeah, review one of these plans, see how, Graciela, do we have time? Can we do this?
Yeah, I was going to suggest we have the exercise in the in the slides.
Yeah,
Everyone has access to the slides. Maybe we can do the exercises as an extra work between the
yeah,
sessions. And if you have any questions, if you need help going through the exercises, sign up to a coaching session, and then the coach could help you walk through all the DMPs. In any case, if you don't want to create a DMP in the DMP online, the questions that we have in the slides are really, really great to help you think about the process of collecting data and sharing data. So yeah, in any case, it's a great thing to practice, even if it's not in a cohort call like today. So yeah, I suggest that you do that between this week and next week. And if you have any questions, sign up to a coaching session to walk through it with your coach.
yeah. So go through a few of the templates that and examples that are already available on DMP online and also DMP tool, and then see how they list the data formats, just all the components that would go into a DMP. Yeah, and then think about your own project as well and see if you have available to you all these. So this is what the second part of the exercise is actually. So the questions you had answered before, try putting them now in practice into a data management plan. Create one and see where you get stuck, and then bring those up as conversations then. Yeah, you can bring them in one of the coaching sessions and you can discuss those. I'm from an African university, so maybe I'll have a few answers from that context. And then, yeah, I also have experience on the other side. Yeah, and let's make it an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I was going to suggest if you're at a university, try to find out who's the person at the university that can help you with the DMP. Very often we have one person dedicated to helping and even do the DMP for you sometimes if you're really lucky. So yeah, one of the exercises that you can do this week is finding out who is the person in your institution that can help you with that.
Yeah, same to if you're in a research institution and this is the work that you do. Maybe you have a separate department that does this, that is not attached to your own department. Yeah, and talk to your colleagues if they've done this before as well, especially if they've done funding applications also. See what that involved. Yeah, and then let's sit down and have beautiful discussions. Right. And then, yeah, so that was the first part of the cohort call, the practical aspect of a data management plan and how to do open data using data management plans. And then the second part now is open data communities and you and how you can contribute and how you can get involved. So yeah, I'm going to bring this back again. In my own university, there's very little discussion, especially around open data. I did my master's during COVID times, and this is when I got introduced to the concept of open science. And I was very much fascinated with open data. I was working on SESFLI data, so I was already working with an open data repository, but I was also generating my own data. And I got to ask my supervisor and my PI all the questions that I could around what type of rights I have to sharing the data. whether we had repositories, because that was one of the main problems that we were facing, or we found out that we had to face. Once everything changed, we could not access the repository we had because you had to be physically there to access the repository. So coming up with new protocols for data access, and those came up because of the type of structures that were there, and it was very closed access. And now we had to now start talking about things like openness, and open science became a relevant conversation. And so that's how I got involved with OLS. That was my origin story with OLS. We came in and learned about open science and open data, and that's how I was able to bring up all these conversations and joined very many communities. So there's very many ways that you can be involved in open communities, especially around open data. You can start your own community fast. We did that. That was our first OLS project. We formed the Bioinformatics Hub of Kenya initiative, and it talks about open science, especially around bioinformatics. So you can do the same. It's a very nice way to broach the subject in your university, in your small office, the students that you're together. Are you using open data? If so, are you having problems with your supervisor around the sharing of the data? Can you be able to start that conversation? So you can create a gathering around open data. So that becomes your own. Organize a gathering around open data. So that provide input to standards committees. Many of the standards, especially around open data, are contributed by European countries. So do we have standards in our own African countries, in Latin America? Can we contribute to those standards as well? Because we have different policies, government policies, data sharing policies. Can we contribute? Now that becomes your personal initiative to go in and say, you're making standards that will not apply to me, so I cannot practice open data with that. So these are the standards that exist that will apply to me. So have those as well. I'm sure they apply to many others in my region as well. So yeah, how else can you do this? So, I'd love to hear maybe one or two, so that it's not my voice just in the video.
Well, my idea is to contribute to the Tidy Tuesday data curation thing. So if you're not familiar, Tidy Tuesday is a challenge that runs every week for people gather some sort of open data that is available, and people kind of do the same data every week. No, do the same data each week, and they try to do data visualizations, a fun way to get engaged with open data. And you can also contribute with open data yourself. So if you have an open data that you want to share to get folks to do data visualization with it, I think that's a good entry point. Yeah. I'll send the link in the chat.
Maybe an idea. There's a currently, given what happened with the repositories that were mostly hosted in the US, there's a lot of conversations right now about data preservation. Some of the data, African data sets, because we did not have repositories, were hosted in those repositories, and they have gotten lost. So there's a lot of efforts to find these data sets. On LinkedIn, if you look for data preservation, I believe. I'm forgetting the name of I'll put it in the Frama pad as well. It's a very good initiative that you can also contribute to. If you're working with that data yourself, if you worked with that data yourself and you know where it is, you can contribute by saying, oh, I know where it is. I can find it. And then they need help with the documenting of its metadata. So it's also very good practice of you to, get involved in writing out the metadata itself and seeing how other organizations do that as well. So it's a very nice place to contribute to. Try it out yourselves. And there are very many other resources that are available for learning about data management and more stuff about open data to add on to what Isil gave you last week. So go through all the beautiful resources. These were created by amazing teams. These are not my own work. So the slides as well, I just moved things around a little bit so they're available for you to use. And with that, do good work and may the force be with you. Good stuff.
Okay, thank you, Pauline, and thank you to everyone for joining the session today. Just a quick reminder before we say goodbye, I will give the floor to Graciela right after that. So remember that you should find the DNP person in your institution during the upcoming days, or the department, if there is any, and you complete the second exercise in the presentation regarding your graduation project. And if you need any help with that, you can feel free to sign up for a coaching session, and you're going to have that. And also, you should contact OLS team if you are not receiving mails from OLS. It's very important so that we can add you to the mailing list for the cohort. Again, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure for me to be a facilitator again. You might not see me in the upcoming sessions anymore, so I wish you good luck with your graduation projects.
Yay! Thank you, everyone. Just a quick reminder, if you want to sign up to coaching sessions for next week, please sign up until Friday so we can confirm with coaches the meeting. And the next cohort call is next week, May 5th at 3 p.m. UTC. +1, I should say, UTC +1, about open code. Okay, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are on Slack, we are on Mail, and that's it. Thank you so much, Ezra and Pauline. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.